What is guidance? Well, I think we're all guidance. I think that we're all guidance for each other. I think that all of life is about guidance. I think that we're guided from the moment that we are born until the second that we die. And everything in life is guidance, man. And the highest perspective that somebody could take would be that everything is guidance. It doesn't matter whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that happens in your life. It's all guidance. You know, you wake up in the morning and you have these concepts about who you are and who you're becoming. Let me say this. Life is never about who you are. It's never about who you are. It's about who you're being in this moment. Because yesterday is nothing but a memory, and the future is nothing but a dream. In this present moment, you're expressing yourself in a certain way and being a certain person and showing up in a certain way, but you might not have showed up like this yesterday. And that's the thing about God's grace, is that God's grace is new each day. And so every single morning, to a wise person, I used to tell this to people, to a wise person, every morning is a brand new life. And we don't ever see life this way. We don't take the seriousness of a sunset and we don't take the seriousness of a sunrise. We don't get it. We just, because everything for us is linear. We experience life linearly and everything is connected. And the way that we make sense of our experience is by connecting yesterday with today and yesterday with tomorrow. That's how we experience life. Yesterday is connected to now, now is connected to tomorrow. It's linear, but that's not reality. Everything in reality is conjugal. Think about your memory. When you think back on the past 5 years of your life, it's a big blur in your mind of just one thing. Like you remember 5 years of your life and you can remember it like that. Because you're not experiencing the past 5 years in your memory as event after event, after sunset and sunrise and sunset. You're experiencing the whole movie of the past 5 years in one instant in your head, right? That's how we experience life inwardly, is that it's one big conjumbled thing. But outwardly, as humans, we experience it as moment by moment by moment linearly. And the problem with that is that it confuses us about who we are. What I mean by that is that you think you are who you were yesterday. Guilt reminds us of our failures. And we hold ourselves so accountable. So accountable. And that's good. But we hold ourselves too accountable for the person that you were yesterday. You've got people in jail serving 20 years, 30 years for something they did yesterday. So it's so hard to get away from the things and the person we were yesterday. But there's no forgiveness in that. There's no grace in that. There's no, fuck, I messed up. Can I restart? I should write a book called Start Again. And you should view every day as a new blank slate to start again. Anybody who is successful in life and in this world, what we define as success, meaning the money, the businesses, the cars, right? We define success in ways that is not true. Right? Many billionaires may go to sleep with no peace. So where does forgiveness and grace come into the identifying things that are in us about who we are? Because what I'm telling you right now is that you aren't the person you were yesterday, and you never can be that person again. Thank God. You aren't the same person in this relationship as you were in the past relationship, though it seems like you're the same person. You're not. You're not the same person today as you were yesterday any more than you're the same person now than you were 10 minutes ago. That's the secret of life that we keep from ourselves, which keeps us down, which keeps us from progressing because we're so tied to yesterday. I remember the story of Jesus when he met this woman. I guess she was a prostitute. I'm not sure. He met this woman at the well, and she was lamenting about her sins. And all he said was, your sins are gone from the left to the right, from farthest from the east to the right. He says, go on and sin no more. Jesus never talked to anybody about their past, ever. He always was future facing. And that's what I want for you, is for you to be future facing, not past. Learn the art of rejuvenating and reinventing yourself every morning. Every morning you reinvent yourself. You decide who you're going to be this day. You could fail day after day after day in a relationship, fail to be a father, fail to show up, fail to be a husband. And then one day you can make a decision and say, I'm going to show up differently. And the universe will give you that grace. The people that hold you accountable in your relationships and yourself are far less able and willing to give you that grace. I think it's important for you to disconnect from people and phases of your life and move on to new connections. I'm not saying for you to view every person in your life as somebody who's expendable. But what I'm telling you is that I'm not associated with some people from 5 years ago that I don't want to be associated with, because they know who I was 5 years ago, but they don't know me today. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't know how I'm showing up. They don't know the fights and the turmoils and the struggles and the wars that I've been in. And nobody is going to know you but you. And that's why you got to have grace to reinvent yourself every day and forgive yourself and let things go. Because God in the universe is not holding you accountable for who you were yesterday. It's focused on tomorrow. It's focused on now. Who are you now? That's what's important. Because you could not show up yesterday, but you can show up today. And we have to know the things that we have control over. It's absolute insanity to try to be in control of something that you don't have control over. It's like staring in your rearview mirror all the time while you're driving, trying to avoid somebody from running into you from behind. That's what being worried about the past is like. I remember when I was learning to drive, my first car was a Ford Mustang in 1996, black on black Ford Mustang. And it was a standard. And my grandfather would take me out and teach me how to drive every day after school. And I was so scared about what was happening behind me that I used to almost get in car accidents going forward because I'm staring in the back. And I kept staring at the rear view, every stop sign, every stoplight. I'm staring at the rear view. I'm staring at the rear view because I'm worried about somebody coming up from behind and smacking me. And one day my grandfather got mad at me and he said, stop looking in your fucking rear view mirror. Don't worry about what's back there. You can't control that. Focus on what's in front of you, because that's what you can control. Worrying about your past and who you were, where you didn't show up, the mistakes you made, the money you blew, the relationships you destroyed, all of it is pointless. The only use of the past is to look back and reflect and say, where can I be better? But we don't give ourselves that grace. We don't hold ourselves to that amount of freedom. We want to wake up and feel bad today because feeling bad and feeling guilty is a mark of consciousness. So we got to feel bad. Well, we hurt this person. And so every single day we have to tell this person we're sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. Da, 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 da. Because we're so wrapped up and encompassed about who we are, being defined by all of the moments that lead up to this moment. And that's the definitive sign of who we are. And it's so off base and it's so wrong, because God, when God sees you, and they say that miracles happen when a change of perspective occurs. That's when a miracle occurs, is when a change of perspective happens and a person is able to see something as God sees it. When you're able to see all of the situations that you've experienced in life in the eyes of the universe, then those things become teaching moments, and they're no longer flat tires and broken divorces, broken marriages and divorces and failed business. None of the negative from the past is a definitive factor of who you are in this moment today. But we as humans, we merge chapter. Like we have a chapter of last week and then chapter of the week before. And we remember things that's going backwards. And then we combine all those memories to define who we are. And there's so much entrapment in that and unforgiveness. It's almost like we hold ourselves too accountable. You know, there's a saying that people blame things on the devil and give him credit for things that he didn't do, but they caused for themselves. And that is, when you think about that, okay, well, maybe I'm blaming Satan and the devil for coming in and messing this up and putting this speed bump and putting this issue, when in reality, it's ourselves. But in reality, all of that is guidance, because the only way to successfully look at the past is to say, what is guidance? Because when you understand circumstances and situations and you gain this perspective, this miracle perspective, that everything is guidance and that God has good plan for you, and that you could put your faith that the universe has good things planned for you, that there's nobody out trying to hunt you down. The universe isn't against you. It's for you. You are supported by spiritual beings. You are guided every day. There is a higher power of some kind that we at Multi-Gen Mindset Institute don't force you to define. But in these 5 different religions that you can see just here in this 5 different religions, just in these books right here, all of them say the same thing. It doesn't matter which religion. Mormonism, Scientology, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, all of these religions, they all say the same thing. And that's that you are not who you have been. Free is the man who understands the inception of a thing. That's what Thoth says. And what that means is that you are the inception of a thing. Free is the man that understands the inception of a thing. You are the inception of a thing. I mean, if we didn't have this grace, we couldn't be divine beings. Because divinity is defined by sovereignty. Divinity is defined by authority and sovereignty. Divinity is your identity. You're a spiritual being that is immortal. And you will always have consciousness of who you are and where you are in this current moment, no matter what plane you're on. Whether you're on the earth plane or the Mars plane or the heaven plane, the spiritual world, it doesn't matter. You are an infinite, constant, you're an infinite, immortal, conscious being, and this body is temporary. And you're only going to be in this body 80 to 120 years. And you're a transitioning being. You are a being that touches both heaven and earth at the same time. Because within your being, you have your physical body. But then you have your soul and your spirit, which is who you are. So within your identity is both the flesh and the spirit. You are literally the bridge between heaven and hell on this earth. You are the bridge between the physical universe and the spiritual universe. That's your identity. You are a supreme being that is infinite, immortal, and unkillable. You can't kill a spirit. The body may die, but your consciousness and your knowingness of yourself is going to continue after death. So you can't even define yourself by this life. If you did believe in reincarnation, I'm not saying you need to or not. We have religions here at Multi-Gen Mindset Institute that teach reincarnation. We don't, at Multi-Gen Mindset Institute, tell you which pathway is true and which one isn't. We just provide the knowledge and the spiritual truths in every religion. And if, let's say you believed in reincarnation and you believed you were going to live 100 lives, you couldn't even define yourself by the failure or success by one entire lifetime. You'd have to live all 100 lives and then look at the 100 lives collectively and say, how did I show up in all 100 lives? Because that's apparently who I am right now. But then what about your next 100 lives? Can you show up differently? Can you be a criminal and an alcoholic and a failure in the first 100 lives and then be a spiritual teacher and a guru and a doctor in following lives? Yes. That is the flexibility that being a spiritual sovereign being gives you. And we don't claim our sovereignty. Our sovereignty says that here in this moment, I am a new creation. I am a new creation every moment. I don't need to hold myself accountable beyond the basics of responsibility for who I was in the past. But guilt and resentment and blame and self-hate and judging myself and holding myself against a fire, all of that stuff is pointless. It's actually a waste of time, and it's a waste of energy, because you should be focused on now in this moment and moving forward. It's like any entrepreneur that's ever had a failed business. You know that every moment spent lamenting about what didn't go right is time lost towards doing something different in the future and focusing on how you can rebuild that business with a different structure, with a different set of SOPs, with a different organizational chart. Multigen Wellness Online, we have built that business up, and it's failed, I think, 5 or 6 times. It's a 6-year-old business. And every single year we relaunch the business in a different format, in a different blueprint, in a different org chart. And every year it's gotten better and better. Life comes with a flexibleness and a grace that we don't acknowledge. We don't acknowledge the grace that life gives us. You are a new creation every moment. The past is nothing but a memory. It's nothing but to look back on and say, where could I do better? Not to hold it against yourself. We hurt other people on accident sometimes in our relationships, and then we lose relationships. I've got a 10-year-old relationship with my ex-fiance. I was with her from 21 years old to 31 or 32 years old. And I lament that relationship because things that happened to her that weren't fair and things that happened to me that weren't fair, where we abused each other and didn't appreciate each other. That's why we lost each other. But how much use is considering holding myself over the flame of responsibility and guilt over how I didn't show up for her in that relationship versus looking back on it and saying, where did I do well? Where did I actually show up for her? Because that shows my strengths. And how can I do better in the next relationship? Beyond that, there's no more necessity for guilt. So there is this word called conviction. It's in Christian realms, the word conviction is often used to define when you've done something wrong or you've sinned, and God, the Spirit of God, is holding you accountable and putting a guilt in you called conviction. You're convicted, right? It's a negative connotation. Just like if you go to the criminal court, you've been found guilty, you're convicted. We have this thing called conviction. Now, we have what we also call divine conviction, and then we have self-conviction. Divine conviction will never do anything but remind you of your divinity in the sense of this is who you can be and this is who you're being. And then you're noticing the gap between who you're being and who you can be. And within that gap, you get divine conviction, meaning, I should have went to the gym today and I didn't. That is conviction. I had a self-agreement to go to the gym, and if I didn't go to the gym, I feel something about it. I have feelings about it that aren't pleasant. That is divine conviction. Self-conviction is all the times when we beat ourselves up and we blame ourselves and we look in the mirror and we shake our head and we can't look ourselves in the eye. That is called self-conviction, and it should be the greatest sin known to man. Because you are judging and whipping yourself for something that God has already forgiven yourself for. God isn't concerned about your past. He's concerned about your future and who you're becoming and not who you are. And that's the biggest freedom, is understanding that even the expression of yourself right here in this moment, of who you're being in this moment, is not who you are. That's who you've been. The moment is always who you've been, because the moment goes from moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. So in this moment, the only thing that exists is who you've been and who you're becoming. Life's not about who you are. That's where we get so much wrong, is we think life is about who we are. It's not about who you are, because you are never an R. You are never set. You are never done. You are never complete. You are never finished. So therefore, you can never be done. And since you're never finished and you're an ever perfecting being, you can't prematurely judge a movie before the damn credits have rolled. You got to watch the totality of the movie and then say, oh, that was a good movie. You can't get up halfway through the movie and say, hey, it sucks. It's a bad movie. That would be like judging yourself as bad before you've even finished your this life and the next lives and the next stage and wherever that may be, whatever that may be. Life has so much forgiveness. Life has so much grace. And we don't see it. We hold our family and our friends so accountable, and we hold ourselves so accountable. We're always pointing the finger and saying who's wrong and da-da-da-da. When life is about love and becoming more of a loving being every moment. How can I be softer? How can I show up more emotionally? How can I be more present? How can I hear better? How can I appreciate better? That's what life's about. It's always about how can I. It's always rolling forward. So don't prematurely judge your movie before the credits have even rolled. You can't judge yourself until this life is done and finished and you're looking back on it as a spiritual being, taking accountability for who you were and how you showed up. And even then, all is guidance. This life is not for you to be judged. The Christian Bible teaches that at the end of life, you're judged and you will either go to heaven or hell. And we have this absoluteness. Anybody who was raised in the Christian church, the Western modern Christian church, has this heaven and hell concept of judgment. You're either black or you're either white. There's just one scripture that says, God will spit you out of his mouth if you're lukewarm. You either better be hot or cold. If you're not for him, you're against him. It's either black or white. And the Roman church, or whoever wrote up the modern version of the Bible and plugged in all this crap that wasn't actually the words of Jesus. And we do teach at Multigen Mindset Institute that the Bible is invalid. It is one of the most invalid books known to man. It is the most edited, the most manipulated. It is the most literally inspirational book known to man, but it is also the most manipulated and the most edited book. You can't rely on what it says because they edited and took out and removed the words of Jesus and then added in things that aren't even real, that aren't even true, like the heaven and hell thing. Jesus never talked about heaven and hell. He talked about eternal life. He never talked about heaven and hell. It's all a lie. Jesus was a spiritual being who taught eternal life, and he taught vibration, and he taught meditation, and he taught overcoming the physical world and the powers of the physical world and being and walking in your spiritual wholeness. That's what he taught. That's why they killed him. So we have this concept in the Western world of black or white. You're either good or bad. You're either being a good person or you're being a bad person. There's this absoluteness and this concreteness and blah. You are stamped. You are a bad person. No, you might have been a bad person yesterday, but God damn it, today you can be better. That is the flexibility that is inherent in life. Inherent. You can cut a tree down, and 4 years later, you can go back, and out of that tree stump is growing a fresh new seedling. Lizards cut their tail off, it'll grow back. Some jellyfish are actually immortal. They remake their cells. This life is full of so much grace and so much forgiveness and so much love. And we are so stuck in judgment and black and white and good and bad and heaven and hell and sin or righteousness. And we're locked into this mindset of black and white. And that's not how God is. God is not black or white. God is ever changing, ever flexible, and just like that, he's always the same. I'd like for you today to give yourself some grace and some space to start anew every morning and to start anew every moment. You might have fallen off the wagon 10 minutes ago, but that doesn't mean that you can't get back on whatever wagon it is that you feel like you should be on. And quit holding yourself against the fire, man. Let it go. You screwed up. You fucked up. You did this. You didn't show up. You cheated. You stole. Whatever. As far as from the east is to the west, that's how far your sin is from you. Because the things that you do cannot define who you are. Because a definition of who you are is as concrete as saying, this journal is this journal. This is this journal. But guess what? I can make this into something different than it is. I can fold it up and make it a paper airplane. I can put it in a fire and turn it into ash. Right? I can do a million things with this journal and make it something different than it's not, because I have sovereignty. So where in life are you holding yourself against the flame and saying you did this, you messed up, you failed, and you're never going to be different? Where are you staying up late at night holding yourself guilty for something that you've been forgiven for? That's what I ask you. Because life is about grace. It's about forgiveness. It's about starting new. That's what life's about.